What's up, Taiwan? I'm Reece Ayers with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Taiwanese officials are raising the alarm over Cross-Strait meetings being held over the next 2 days in China. The summits provide a venue for informal dialogue between China and Taiwan, but the Mainland Affairs Council here in Taipei says exchanges like these can be used to advance Chinese Communist Party propaganda. Cadence Caranta joins us live from our newsroom in Taipei with more. Cadence, what do we know about these summits?
So there are two cross-strait exchange summits happening over the next 2 days in China. One is focused on the media and one is focused on culture. And there will be Chinese officials that will be attending, as well as a group of Taiwanese citizens, including former government officials from the Kuomintang, or the KMT, which is Taiwan's opposition party and generally has closer ties with China. There also will be businessmen, as well as the head of a media organization in Taiwan, as well as a well-known lyricist. And this group met with Chinese officials first yesterday, ahead of the official start to the summit.
And these summits aren't uncommon, so what are officials here in Taiwan worried about?
So this is not the first time that these summits have happened. And although Chinese and Taiwanese governments cut off all formal communication in 2016, these kinds of cultural exchanges are not uncommon. When the KMT was in power, these kinds of exchanges were encouraged, actually, but the Democratic Progressive Party currently holds Taiwan's presidency, and they view China as a threat, and they are very wary of Chinese influence. That's because China has long asserted that Taiwan is part of their territory, and they say that they will take Taiwan by force if necessary. So the DPP has been stepping up its efforts to combat what it says is Chinese infiltration and influence within Taiwan. With these summits specifically, Taiwan's Mainland Affairs Council, which manages relations between Taiwan and China, has said that they really disapprove of these summits. They say that these kinds of exchanges are only to advance China's united front tactics. And these tactics are well documented. They're part of a broader political strategy to influence public opinion within Taiwan and to advance China's goal of taking Taiwan. So these summits are generally not uncommon, but they're definitely something the government is keeping an eye on, especially amid heightened tensions between both sides of the strait.
Well, thanks, Cadence. That was Cadence Caranta reporting from our newsroom in Taipei. Security officials in Taipei are accusing China of spreading disinformation after Chinese officials blamed Taiwan's ruling Democratic Progressive Party for a cyber attack. Chinese security officials say a recent cyber attack on a tech company in Guangzhou was carried out by overseas hackers backed by the DPP. But Taiwan's National Security Bureau says China is manipulating inaccurate information. It says China is trying to create confusion and cover up its own cyber attacks on Taiwan. Officials in Taipei say Beijing has repeatedly targeted Taiwan's government systems, as well as key infrastructure like energy and defense networks. 4 Chinese Coast Guard ships entered Taiwanese waters off the outlying Kinmen Islands, but Taiwan's Coast Guard says it chased them away. The Coast Guard says it deployed 4 patrol boats to escort the Chinese ships out of the area on Wednesday morning. It comes after a similar incursion on Tuesday afternoon that also involved 4 Chinese Coast Guard vessels. Taiwan's Coast Guard says incursions like these are grey zone warfare tactics, and they will increase surveillance ahead of the Dragon Boat Festival, which is coming up this weekend. The Defense Ministry says it spotted 31 Chinese military aircraft and 9 naval vessels operating around Taiwan in the 24 hours up to Wednesday morning. 22 of those aircraft entered Taiwan's Air Defense Identification Zone, or ADIZ. This area isn't Taiwan's airspace, but acts as buffer zone for defensive purposes. The military says it also spotted 1 official ship operating near Taiwan. It comes after the Defense Ministry on Tuesday monitored Chinese combat readiness drills near Taiwan. Taiwan is trying to build up a drone industry. It wants to use its drones in its own defense and also benefit from the China-US rivalry Louise Watt reports.
Manufacturers at an AI innovation centre in southwestern Taiwan are giving visitors from Asia a taste of what the country hopes will be its next big product: drones. Already the world's leading semiconductor hub, Taiwan is now trying to build a drone industry. It's mostly producing drones for civilian uses like disaster response and traffic management. But it's also making drones for military purposes, part of a shifting defence strategy as it faces increasing threats from China, which claims sovereignty over democratic Taiwan.
Well, we know that based on the war in Ukraine, they've been using a lot of drones because they might be short of manpower. So this can be the same situation in Taiwan as well, because we don't have as many manpower compared to China.
In developing a drone industry, Taiwan is also competing with Beijing on another level. It wants to become an alternative supplier to China, which dominates drone making. As the US and other countries look to reduce dependence on Chinese manufacturers, Taiwan hopes it can step in. Here in the rural county of Jiayi, it set up a base for drone development and testing, part of its plan to become an Asian hub of drone supply chains for democratic nations. Legislator Guanting Chen of the ruling Democratic Progressive Party says he believes Taiwan is on the right track, but that it should target its own market first.
I would urge the Ministry of National Defense to open more bids to make sure that we have enough during the conflict time. Well, we hope that day will never come, but we need to stockpile those things so when the time comes, we have enough. And this is also a great deterrence to China to tell them we are going to prepare.
Here in Jiayi, Taiwan is demonstrating to potential Japanese suppliers and customers that its drone industry is already off the ground. Now it is trying to scale it up so the country can produce enough drones to also help protect itself in any future conflict with China. Hank Xu, Eason Chen and Louise Watt for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwanese chip giant TSMC is expanding its footprint in Europe. The chipmaker says it will open a new design centre in Munich by late 2025, supporting high-performance chip development for AI, automotive and industrial uses. TSMC is also part of a tech coalition investing in a new $11 billion plant in Dresden, alongside Infineon, NXP and Bosch. Executives say the new Munich hub could play a key role in Europe's semiconductor ambitions by offering advanced design and AI-ready capabilities. The announcements come as Europe scrambles to catch up in the global AI race. Southeast Asian regional bloc ASEAN has invited China and Persian Gulf states to its latest summit, hoping closer economic ties with them will limit the bite of US tariffs. John Van Trieste reports.
A who's who of world leaders and diplomats takes to this stage in Kuala Lumpur, opening a summit that could have a big impact amid a looming global trade war. This is a meeting of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, but there are important guests. The 6 members of the Middle Eastern Bloc, the Gulf Cooperation Council, all have representatives here. And China is here too, represented by Premier Li Qiang. Host and Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim greets him personally. Though other topics like the civil war in Myanmar are on the agenda at this 3-way meeting, the shadow of U.S. tariffs is hard to avoid. As Ibrahim says, trade with the U.S. remains important, but it's also important to make sure ASEAN countries stand firm and stick to the bloc's interests as a whole in talks with the Trump administration.
On tariff, for example, while proceeding with bilateral negotiations, Zafar was there in the States, but the consensus was to have some sort of understanding amongst ASEAN that decisions should not be at the expense of any other country. So we will have to protect the turf of 650 or 660 million people.
Building closer economic links with the Middle East and China is one way the bloc hopes to manage the risks of trade conflict and economic uncertainty. Leaders like the Crown Prince of Kuwait see a lot of mutually beneficial potential.
In the economic and investment fields, we are pleased to be the 7th largest ASEAN trading partner in 2023, with a total of $138.7 billion, and we expect to see an average 30% growth in trade to reach $180 billion by 2023. The amount of opportunities that can be invested on both sides is huge, and what has been achieved so far confirms that we are on the right track.
China used the occasion to voice its backing for the removal of trade barriers. As the only country the Trump administration hasn't paused tariffs on, it faces the most immediate challenges. But it also sees promise in closer trade ties elsewhere, both with its Southeast Asian neighbors and Arab states further afield.
我们要坚定不移地扩大区域开放，努力把三方市场、三方地区构建成一个资源、技术、人才等更加高效流通、贸易投资更加自由便利的共享大市场。
Malaysia's Anwar Ibrahim says the countries here today have 2.15 billion people between them and a GDP of nearly 25 trillion US dollars. The hope at this summit is that however U.S. tariff policy swings, this collective bulk will make it so no one country is left totally exposed. Fu Huahong and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
The US government has ordered all new student visa applications to be halted. US embassies and consulates have been told to take down new appointment slots for interviews with foreign students. Already scheduled interviews will still go ahead. The Trump administration says the move is to update guidance on vetting the social media of applicants. It comes amid a conflict with Harvard University over international students. Harvard students and professors have come out in support of foreign students.
I would say that we as international students in Harvard, in the U.S., we are not enemies of the U.S. We don't hate the U.S. If we are here, it's because we admire this country, and we admire actually the academic and the liberty and the freedoms that this country has. When we go back home, most of us serve as ambassadors to the country in an informal way. We go back to strengthen American ties with our countries economically, diplomatically, politically, academically. And so we are not the enemy.
The American Institute in Taiwan says it has not received instructions yet and will proceed with scheduled interviews as planned. A UN spokesperson says the aid situation in Gaza is heartbreaking.
And I can tell you that we have been watching the video coming out of Gaza around one of the distribution points set up by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, and frankly, these images are heartbreaking to say the least.
Footage shows thousands of Palestinians scrambling amid gunfire to reach aid delivered by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation on Tuesday. Aid mismanagement and a months-long Israeli blockade have caused severe food shortages in the enclave. Israel says it halted deliveries to prevent supplies falling into the hands of Hamas. The UN is calling for more aid to be allowed into the territory. A huge explosion at a chemical plant in eastern China has killed at least 5 people and injured 19 others. More than 200 emergency workers have been dispatched to the factory in Shandong province to search for 6 people who are still missing. Aerial footage shows the aftermath of the explosion, which was powerful enough to rip the windows from their hinges at a warehouse more than 3 kilometers away. The factory was being used to manufacture pesticides as well as chemicals for medical use. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Before we go, let's head to Mexico for a 2-day festival celebrating cowboy culture. I'm Reece. Take care and see you next time.